Today's topic is enjoy the journey. And a lot of times I pick these topics based on something that's heavy on my heart and in hopes it reaches someone that can also relate. I find that, just a little side note, I find that myself, I'm always kind of looking for that next thing. If I'm in a really hard spot, I'm like, oh, I just can't wait for this month to be over, or I can't wait for this thing to happen, or this other thing. And it's hard for me to be really present in those days because I'm so focused on what's coming next. I'm like, oh, I just got to get through 2 more days and then such and such. And I find we do that a lot, especially the older we get. Sometimes we find ourselves so eager for the next stage in our life that we really forget to enjoy the moments along the way. And if you guys are listening right now and you can relate to that, send a heart or raise your hand in your room or whatever. But think about it. Okay. So since we're young, people are always telling us to rush towards the next stage. If we're single, people ask us why we're single. And if we start dating, people ask us when we're going to start settling down. If we're serious with someone, people ask us when we're going to get married. When we get married, people ask us when we're going to have kids. When we have a kid, people ask us when we're going to have another one, and so on and so on. We're never fully allowed to stop and be in that moment. And it makes it really difficult because we find that we're always being compared to someone else's journey. Like, oh, well, so and so they had a house by 25 and they had 3 kids by 30. So what are you doing with your life? And you immediately start comparing yourself because they compared you. And you find that you're inferior then because you're like, well, I guess I haven't accomplished that. We start belittling our own accomplishments because we haven't accomplished the same things they have, but we forget we're living different lives, right? It's so easy to look at them and be like, oh, they did this, this, and this. I haven't done any of those things, so I must be a failure at life. Or until I get to that point, people aren't going to recognize that, right? But I was talking about this the other day. If we're constantly playing by someone else's playbook, we are always going to lose. And it's a hard reality, but it's the truth. Because if we're constantly trying to check the boxes for someone else's list, we're never going to fully be happy. Because those things don't apply to our list. Maybe eventually we want them. Maybe some of those things we want, but it's not for us right now. We find that we tell ourselves we have to accomplish these things because other people have accomplished them too, or other people are there as well. So we must get there. So I want you to stop and think about where you're at in your life right now, whether it's a stage in parenting, a stage at your job, or just life in general. Maybe it's like your house or like where you live, your car you drive, the ages of your kids, the neighborhood you live in, the state you live in, whatever it is. What do you find yourself constantly wishing for or dreaming of that next stage? Maybe you wake up and you're like, oh, I hope my child is out of this really hard stage they're in. Maybe you dread going to your job every day. You just count down the hours until you're done. Maybe you're counting down the days until you don't have to live with your in-laws anymore. Whatever it is, think about those moments. We all have those moments where we find ourselves trying to get through that day, that week, that month to the next thing. But what we forget to do is stop and look at where we're at and see how far that we have come and be grateful for the current place we're in. Now, this is not to say if you have your struggles or you have challenges, oh, just be grateful, just be grateful. Definitely not saying that, because I think it's really important to acknowledge our struggles and acknowledge what we are going through. But what I do mean is kind of what I talked about earlier, in where we feel like we have to compare ourselves to someone else, compare our journey. We immediately see like, oh, if they've done X, Y, and Z, and I haven't done those things, I'm a failure. So stopping and looking back on your life and seeing all the things that you have accomplished seeing that you have done things in your life, you have made progress. And it's okay if every moment of your life isn't this exciting, goal hitting, amazing new stage. Some stages in life are just kind of mundane, and that's okay. So today I want to talk about some tips and ways that we can enjoy the process a little bit more each day. Because we need to allow ourselves to be more present in each day, and at the same time, allow ourselves to have those mundane moments and find purpose in them. So I talk a lot about journaling as a way to check in with yourself and give yourself a minute to regroup and start or end the day. And so by doing this, we can also ask ourselves, what are we feeling? Why are we trying to rush the next stage in life? Are we going through something difficult right now? Do we feel like we have no support right now? Ask yourself what you're looking for. Because now when it comes to life's achievements, I put that in quotes, life's achievements, based on other people's expectations of you, we don't always check in with ourselves first, right? Let's say your next door neighbor gets a brand new car and you can barely afford the payments on your own car. You're like, oh my gosh, they got a brand new 2022, whatever. I don't know cars very well, but brand new car. And just internally, you're telling yourself, well, I need to make more money so I can get a new car. That's what I need to do. When in reality, your car works fine. You don't need a new car. You don't even care about cars. But something about them having this new car internally makes you feel like you need a new car too. So ask yourself, that's why we check in, ask ourselves, do I actually want those things? And by asking if we want those things, that could mean right now or ever.